Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Daily Audio Diet. Well, I'm back in Pittsburgh, actually right next to the airport, so if you hear a plane or two, don't get frazzled. Finished my 3-day consulting gig here. Going to be heading back to Dallas tomorrow on Friday, only to turn around and head back to Cincinnati, Ohio, for a conference that I'm going to be speaking at next week. So a lot of action in the audio excursion world here after the big Vegas and LA trip. Hopefully things will slow down a bit in November. No, wait. I'm going to Mexico City for a few days then. Well, anyway, we'll deal with that when it comes. But for now, I wanted to discuss a matter that came up a week ago on the Surface Noise show with Concert Buddy regarding the Purple Rain one-step release from the label Because Music Matters. And the reason for the discussion was that on the Tracking Angle site, a review was done by Michael Fremer of the album, and clearly he loved it. He gave the sound a 10, the music a 10, and it was the best it's ever sounded. He felt that the original was too bright and didn't really capture all that it could. And bottom line, was very satisfied with this particular one-step release. And another person in the VC, Melinda Murphy, who loves that album, purchased it and really had high hopes and was somewhat disappointed. And there began a bit of a back and forth in the comments on this about the record and, not taking one reviewer's perspective only to buy it. Which, of course, that would be true of, taking Michael's review and buying it based on that, of course, as well. But there can be perception differences in what's expected. Example, if Michael never really liked the sound of the original and thought it was too bright, then if that was scaled back some, that would be pleasing to him because that was a need that he had and a hope and expectation of what might happen. Conversely, Melinda may always have been very happy with the way it was originally done, and this didn't better it in her mind. Both items can be valid. So I thought for a moment about the fact that, let me think here. I had interviewed and talked to Susan Rogers, who was in fact involved in sound engineering, some of Prince's records. And so I kind of sent her a note and wanted her to be aware, hey, look, this is going on, this discussion about this record. What can you tell me about the way it was recorded and the original, and what are your thoughts on this? And so I sent a note to Susan after we had Surface Noise last week. And I said, trying to recall if you were involved in Purple Rain project by Prince. A recent reissue of it has garnered some perspective about it having a harsh top end in the original releases. And I wondered if that was a, quote, sound that Prince himself was advocating or a reflection of the mastering influences of the 80s. Thanks in advance for your insights. And then I gave her a link of Michael Fremer's review. And she graciously responded, and I thought it was an interesting response that I want to share with you. Yes, I worked on the Purple Rain album and movie. I joined Prince when he was midway through it. Regarding the sound on Prince albums, truth is that he had little to no interest in any aspect of his records that weren't musical. So he was really into the musicality and I'm sure the lyrics of his records. He was agnostic when it came to audio quality. The tracks that were recorded at Sunset Sound in LA, which were When Doves Cry, Take Me With You as an example, sound better than the ones recorded in a mobile truck at First Avenue, which were songs like Baby I'm a Star and I Would Die For You. And better than what we recorded at rehearsal with the Soundcraft console for Let's Go Crazy, or in his home studio, Darling Nikki was the track from that. Listeners who critique the sound quality on Prince records are judging the elephant by its tail. Prince believed with all of his heart that music lovers seek out musical objects, not sonic ones. If the music pleased him, he had no complaints. Bernie Grundman is a maestro among mastering engineers. I agree. Prince and I would go to the mastering sessions. Prince liked Bernie because he, Bernie, never used a heavy hand or told Prince what to do. Bernie fixed what we asked to have fixed. I hope this helps with the debate. So I thought there were some interesting insights into that with the variability in recording, Prince's being agnostic about the audio quality, and the fact that he was engaged in the mastering sessions. He got, I think, what he wanted in the original, although he wasn't as focused as much on that musicality from an audio quality standpoint, but from, I believe, more of an emotional standpoint. And that makes sense given what Susan told me about Prince when we discussed at length how he worked and what his ethic was regarding his music. And that tracks very closely to Bernie Grundman's style. He sees music as an emotional experience and said very clearly in the interview with me that there can be an effort to get very clinical about the sound and basically wringing out or taking out the emotion or feeling that is created when that original is done and released. And we talked about Thriller in that regard, given his original release through the mastering of Bernie Grundman that Michael Jackson did, and then Mo-Fi coming out with it later. And that more clinical, sterile sound that really gave you a little more definition, but didn't necessarily make you want to get up and dance like the original did. So a lot of this tracks in consistency, in my opinion. But it goes still back to the basics of if someone has a bit of a visceral reaction to maybe the way something sounds, vis-a-vis the discussion of Michael Fremer and the original cut, and then that's toned down a bit, then that creates a positive experience in the ears of that person. And that makes sense in and of itself. But if someone has a more emotional attachment to a sound and to a recording and its mastering, like the original that Bernie did, and then sees some of that emotion sucked out of it, then to them, something is lost. So both things can be true at the same time. And I think getting beyond that makes this not an argument, but a discussion in the reality of how music is approached to by people, how they approach it and where they're at and what it means to them, and how that response and reaction tracks with the way that they experience music. Sometimes reviewers, and I'm one of them too, can in fact, maybe on a record that you aren't as endeared to, get a little more clinical with the evaluation and not always have that emotional reaction to the record. So we have to sometimes put things in check and say, this is how it sounded to me, here's the difference. And that's what I really try to do, is say, if you really like a warm sound, you're going to like this one. If you like it a little brighter, maybe you're going to like this one. So that way, you can choose based on the type of sound that best fits to what you're comfortable with. So I don't think these things deserve a lot of controversy in and of themselves, but and so there isn't a this is right 100% kind of a situation. And I don't think that's ever true. And I certainly don't want to ever give that impression when I do reviews. This is the way I see it and hear it. Here's the differences, and here's the emotive difference between them, that you can decide which side of the ledger you really feel closer to, so that you can understand that the differences are there, and A might be one way and B the other, but that doesn't make always one good and one bad at all. So I think I wanted to share this perspective, and also show you that, the Prince background side of this, because I just thought it was interesting. He was an artist in probably one of the most pure senses of the word. And because of that, I think that his approach to these things was much more about where it got you here, as opposed to where it got you here. So as always, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next Daily Audio Diet tomorrow.